Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. There is not a program across the country that has the momentum Clemson does heading into 2025. Maybe the only other team, USC. Shout out what USC is doing out there on the West Coast. Look, I'm not only talking about the recruiting success that we've seen from Clemson over the last couple of days. I'm talking about where this program is at generally heading into 2025. Dill, you have to give so much credit to Dabo Swinney in this Clemson program. There were a lot of people in the college football landscape that were very critical of Dabo Swinney, that had felt like the modern era of college football with the transfer portal and with NIL kind of passed Dabo Swinney up. Heck, I was critical at times over the last 24 months about this Clemson program. Dabo Swinney was steadfast in the process. And now you pull your head out of the sand early March, heading into 2025, and you look at Clemson and say they have not gone anywhere in terms of like hierarchy of the college football landscape. What has allowed Clemson to stay at the top and have all this momentum heading into the 2025 year? That's what I want to get into, because they operate a little bit differently, and the way they've operated has allowed them to kind of, stay the course going into the 2025 year. Before we get into it, as always, the Clemson fans, just a shout out to the Clemson fans. As somebody who loves talking the recruiting trail, I've had an absolute blast talking this team, breaking down the commitments, and all the Clemson fans that have been letting it fly in the comments section, showing us support on the social medias. That stuff means the world to the boys. Appreciate you guys. If you all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section in terms of where you think and how you feel about this Clemson program going into the 2025 year. And Dill, when you start evaluating this program, you say, hey, what has Clemson done differently that has allowed them to gain all this buzz heading into 2025? I want to start with the number one reason I'm a believer in Clemson going into 2025, and that is the continuity that you see on the roster. Yeah, you can point to Cade Klubnik. You can point to a guy like TJ Moore, Brian Westcott, Peter Woods, or TJ Park on the defensive line. They got a very good football team. There are reasons to believe in them just from a talent standpoint. The reason I have much more success, or much more, I shouldn't say success, much more confidence in Clemson going into 2025 is the continuity on this roster, which for some reason nobody talks about, but is a massive, massive talking point in terms of how these college football teams perform. Look at Ohio State in 2024. Yes, they made some really good transfer portal additions, right? They brought in Will Howard. They brought in Caleb Downs. If you follow that Ohio State team and you really understand why they had the success they did, it was because of continuity. And they had a lot of guys, Jack Sawyer, JTT, Lathan Ransom, guys that have been within this program for 4 years that decided not to go to the NFL, come back to Columbus. That's why they won a national championship. Go back to Michigan in 2023. Yeah, Michigan was a really good football team that put out a ton of guys to the NFL. Why were they great? Why did they win a national championship? I will take to my grave. It was the fact that all of those guys who happened to be really good football players played a lot of football together for the last couple of years and then culminated in national championship in 2023. Dill, look at this Clemson football team. Cade Klubnik, year 3 as a starting quarterback. TJ Moore, Brian Wesco, Antonio Williams, all his top receivers coming back. You look at the offensive line, pretty much running it back with the same unit they had in 2024. That got a lot better under Matt Luke. The ability to keep this roster together in an era of college football where you see so much turnover and change for all the other programs across the country, Dill, that's one of the main reasons that I'm a believer in Clemson going into 2025.
But also, not to hit the panic button, because frankly, I go back to 2023. I think there's a lot of coaches who have that year where they didn't look great on offense. I think a lot of people would have given up on Cade Klubnik because he didn't have a particularly great year. I mean, you look at a team like Ole Miss, they kind of hit the eject button if that kind of happens. I kind of think Florida State is a team that feels like they might hit the eject button if that kind of thing happens. Like Dabo Swinney's ability to kind of ride the storms out, if you will. And that's like a storm. That's certainly relative to where Clemson was kind of at in the years before, especially in the late teens. But that ability to look at it and kind of see not just in the present, like, oh, we got to make something happen. Like, I'm not comfortable where I'm at. Like, I think Steve Sarkisian's another really good example of a coach who's able to like take his medicine early in his career at Texas and build through the high school recruiting and kind of get his guys. And you certainly see where that team's going. Yeah, they'll use the portal, but that's another high school built program. Even Ohio State, like they had to deal with some real adversity, kind of losing their spot to Michigan. Michigan in 2020 winning what 2 games or something, like these teams that can kind of ride those storms out and not again be where Florida State's
not hit the panic button.
be where Ole Miss is going to be. It feels like in 2025 where that's just not going to be a
I think you said it best, not hitting the panic button when a lot of other teams would. Because there were a lot of people, Dill, including me, sitting on my couch in my basement eating my Cheetos with my Cheeto-crusted fingers saying, Dabo Swinney's got to change. There are a lot of people like that, and I'm not expunging myself because I was saying some of those things.
I said it too. I was like, if he's not going to do it, they're at such a disadvantage to everyone else. It's like, again, his ability to kind of believe in what he's doing. You see this team, you look, they're right up there with anyone in terms of like who I kind of think is going to make a run here.
Why are they a bona fide national championship team in 2025? It's because Dabo Swinney did not hit the panic button when everybody was telling him to hit the panic button. The next thing I want to talk about, player retention. Look, there is another side to hitting the transfer portal the way teams like Ole Miss and Florida State do. You lose good football players when you bring in that many players, that many new players. They'll look back at Clemson and tell me, hey, how many players did Clemson lose to the transfer portal that you probably didn't want to lose? Because to me, there's one player that comes to mind, right? I think for you, Andrew Makuba, right? The same name you were thinking? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Andrew Makuba. That's about it. And so like when you don't use the transfer portal, it can frustrate college football fans, but you also get to keep all your good players and let them kind of sit in the crock pot and develop. And Dill, I would much rather have a guy. If you said, hey, equal players, equal talent level, you could get a guy that's in his 4th year within this Clemson program or his 4th year of college football, but at his 3rd stop in terms of college football programs. I'm taking a guy that's been within the program for 4 years over that mercenary guy that's coming through the portal. Player retention.
A lot of programs, for whatever reason, don't feel like they can believe in what they're doing in terms of getting guys better. Like Clemson's ability to make 3 stars play like NFL players on a more consistent basis than a lot of programs. Like you really do need to be secure in what you're doing and trust the process that you kind of have in place to develop guys. Because again, I do think you look like a lot of coaches look year in and year out. Why didn't we go in a national championship, or why weren't we better? Well, it was because this guy wasn't good enough. Well, it's your job to make it better. And a lot of teams, they don't feel like they have like the confidence in, again, what they're doing.
The player development. And that's been something that Clemson's built this program on. When you have confidence in your player development, all right, Cade struggled in 2023. We're not going to go look to replace him. We're going to say, hey, you were a second-year quarterback in your first year starting, went through some growing pains. We know you can play. We watched you play your whole high school. You won the Elite 11.
I mean, that like a good chunk of that offensive line might even be the better example. Like we've certainly seen a handful of these guys who are going to start this year in 25
struggle at times.
Like Tristan Lay's career, I don't think immediately started off rolling, if you will. For a guy who came out as talented as he was, I don't think he played necessarily up to that immediately in his college career. But you go back to last year, the light turned on and he played really good football. And Blake Miller's been playing really good football.
When you have confidence in your player development, you probably feel less inclined to hit the panic button. One thing I'll just nerd out on real quick is their high school evals are just so nails still. There are a lot of people in the college football national media landscape that like to just look at the rankings. And you saw Clemson hit the 29, we're 29th in the country in the 2025 class. Now, I'm not going to get up here and say Clemson can repeat the 29th best class in the country and have success. I think Dabo Swinney even knows that's not where you want to be. But Clemson does things differently. They evaluate differently. They might not always have that top 5 class, but you go back and look at the kids that they bring into the program, their hit rate is absolutely insane. And it starts with the blue chip guys, right? The blue chip guys that they bring into the program. I'm talking to Sammy Browns. I'm talking to Peter Woods, TJ Parkers. They don't miss on those cats, right? Every blue chip they bring in pretty much becomes an all ACC caliber guy. But they're the 3 stars, the guys like Tyler Brown, the guys like Khalil Barnes, the guys like Ashton Hampton or Wade Woodaz, the guys that are not generating a ton of Power 4 buzz on the recruiting trail that Clemson has an innate ability to sniff out and bring. Avian Terrell. Probably should have came to him too. 3-star guy, it's all conference cornerback. Their ability to hit on these guys that aren't ranked that high, it's incredible. And yeah, when you bring in a guy like Tyler Brown, you ain't going to have a top 5 class in the country core non-3 or 24/7 sports. I promise you, Dabo Swinney don't give a damn about what the recruiting ranking says because their evaluations and their confidence in terms of bringing in guys, they're going to fit the program and develop in a good fashion. Name me a program that's doing a better job in terms of their high school evals.
And then that's where I also get like some of these, like again, like Josh Pate is really kind of laying into Clemson right now, kind of talking like, oh, this is their last year to really make a run at it. I'm with you. I don't think Clemson can repeat what they did in 2025 year in and year out. Hey, if you historically look, that's not where they've been. Dabo Swinney even said it this morning on 3. So, like, we're typically averaging about the 13th best class in the country. That's where we were when we were rolling. That's where we were when people said we fell off. That's just kind of what they do because you said it. Like, again, they look for a personal fit. They look for a culture fit. It is a little bit deeper than just who's the most talented guy, like a team.
Who's the biggest, strongest, and runs the
Texas A&M was doing that, and they were landing big time classes, and they weren't having good success on the field. So, you can't repeat this, but I think it's very short sighted to say, oh, they had one bad class, as a lot of people say it. Again, can't repeat it, but A, Clemson hasn't, and B, if you can hit at the rate they hit at and what they've historically hit at, I mean, you can weather, like Michigan had one of those quote bad classes run up to that 2023 national championship too. So
I hate to spoil it, but they ain't gonna repeat that in 2026 the way things are going on the recruiting trail.
Oh, so it's like again, okay, yeah, they have maybe a down class, then they bring in a bigger class, and it's just like again a team that is like more like Clemson and doesn't have that like panic switch, if you will, when something doesn't immediately go their way. I just think it is built more sustainable than a lot of people from the outside kind of think at when, again, certain things don't immediately yield to success. At the end of the day, what Dabo's done is worked and worked really well.
The last thing I want to highlight here is he is not gonna he's gonna make the changes when needed. And there's really 2 examples of this. One, okay, you don't sign a great class in 2025. You have a couple of guys that you thought were going to sign. They end up flipping late in the process. Hey, that's why you go to the transfer portal. He's never felt like he's needed to go to the transfer portal, but when you have a few things fall apart late in your high school recruiting class, you go bring in a guy like Will Helt, or you're bringing a guy like Tristan Smith, or you're bringing a guy like Jeremiah Alexander. But even the coaching staff standpoint, Dabo Swinney known for hiring from within. And quite frankly, he just done such a good job holding on to his staff. He never really had to make that.
And that still is kind of the base of this. Again, the coordinator top line item, if you will, he certainly made some changes. But you look at the position coaches, CJ Spiller, Ben Bolt, like a lot of guys who Dabo has kind of mentored up through their career, if you will, are still there. So I don't think again, they made the 2 changes they needed to make. Those coordinators after Venables and after Tony Elliott were clearly not good enough. Streeter in
Wes
Goodwin didn't.
We're just trying to block that out.
You got to try, but obviously you can't. And it's like he did go out and like make those adjustments quickly. And again, that was something I think a lot of us thought when we saw that 2023 year. It's like, oh, are they going to be able to make this, or 2022 year, I should say, on offense, and then 2024 on defense? Like, are they going to be able to make the necessary changes? Because that wasn't necessarily in Dabo's wheelhouse or something, or his tendency.
It's just like, I think to simply put it here, I think you're making it overcomplicated. It's been something he's been historically known to do, hire from within. And hey, in some cases it works. In some cases, that's the best hire. In those 2 cases you just cited, they weren't. Hey, we're quickly going to make a change. And now you look at the 2 coordinators, Garrett Riley going into year 3, Tom Allen year 1, and say, how many better coordinator duos do you see in the country? Because the answer is not that many. And so it's like, even when things like, hey, Dabo Swinney's a rigid guy. I ain't getting up here and saying he likes to change, because he don't. We know that. But when the changes are obvious that need to be made, he's going to change how he operates because he knows sometimes you have to change to be successful. And I think how he went about building his staff was one of those examples. I got to give him credit, man. I don't think there's a lot of coaches that are cut out for like the criticism he took and the way he just like shut it out, did not give a damn what even within the Clemson fan base didn't really give a damn. It's like, we're going to do things the way we want to do them and the way I know what's going to work. And you look up in 2025, man, and say,
telling me Tyler from Spartanburg couldn't throw him off his course?
He couldn't throw him off his course. All right, we'll sign out on that. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Going to be really fun talking this program in the summer. And we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.